to Zambia. And when you look at this, it may just not be South Africa, but South Africa, as you know, because South Africa was hardly hit and it's a major economic partner, we were badly affected. But you know, the world is a global world, and that actually means that even those other partners that are beyond our borders, far from our borders, once the economic impact, or rather the prevalence is high, it affects us economically badly, okay? The containment measures as well, not just the ones we put in here in Zambia, but the measures that are put in place by our partners. Again, I give an example of South Africa. South Africa, when South Africa was badly hit, and it's a major economic partner, this country was badly affected. And in fact, you know that the flights just started recently. So, and you know there are shops, other businesses that closed. So like I said, the socio-economic impact depends on the impact mitigation measures put in place by the country, but also the impact mitigation and the resilience measures put in place by the businesses. Now that's very, very important. And many of you who are business people, business experts, I'm not a business expert, but many of you who are running companies, they are what they call crisis management and business continuity plans that you put in place. For me, the emphasis here is that we ask the question, how much do these crisis management and business continuity plans take into account public health emergencies? Looking at the local within the business itself, at the country level, at the regional level, and at the global level. How much do these crisis management and business continuity plans take into account public health emergencies? When you look at globally, COVID-19, many countries were not prepared. We were caught napping because we were not really prepared. And that is a problem. And so this is a wake-up call for all of us that when we are planning for our businesses and we have a crisis management and business continuity plan, we need to ensure that we have incorporated something that will take care of public health emergencies. Now, so I now want to turn on to the impact itself, and I have selected just 3 studies. One, which was also supported by the World Bank, looks at the regional impact. And there were 4 countries, and this was done by Anna and her colleagues. Then I'll look at another study that was supported by the World Bank Group by Aden Finn and his team. And this one was called Monitoring the Impact of COVID-19 on Firms in Zambia, results from 2 rounds of World Bank Enterprise Survey follow-ups on COVID-19. Some of you may have seen these results, but I would encourage you to really read the actual report because it's very, very interesting. Then the 3rd study that I'm going to refer to in terms of impact is Innovations for Poverty Action, IPA, and they have a series of surveys that have been carrying out, and they are basically updated every 6 months or so. And this is called the Recover Project. It's called Research for Effective COVID-19 Responses, or Recover in short. So I'll just present a few results from that study to illustrate the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 on businesses and careers. So let's look at the one by Jefferson, or Anna, by Anna. So what they did, the team did, was that they analyzed longitudinal data. Now, longitudinal data means you take data now and you follow through the same group over time, okay? So they analyzed longitudinal data from high-frequency phone surveys from Ethiopia, Malawi, Nigeria, and Uganda, the 4 countries. And that constituted about a sample of about 10,855 households. Here's what they found. 256 million individuals, representing 77% of the population across those 4 countries, lived in households that had lost income since the onset of the pandemic. Of course, we may say that not every part of this income was attributable to COVID-19, but most of it was. They also found that student-teacher contact dropped from 96% before COVID to 17% after COVID. Of course, it's easy to understand that because most schools closed. Now, I hope you'll be able to see this slide. Yes, you're able to see those bars. Now, this is looking at income losses or income decreases. And the first bar on each of these groups of bars is farm income. The second bar is business income, which is our interest right now. And then the third bar is wage income. The fourth bar is remittances, and the last one, all other income. If you look, they disaggregated this data by rural and urban. What is important to see is that when you look at business income, for example, across all the 4 countries, you find that almost over 80% of the countries, the household had lost income. You can see the second bar on each side, whether it's urban or rural, you find that over 80% had lost income. And that is business income. So that is very, very interesting and important to note. Now, let's look at that's within the region. So within the region, we know that many, many households have lost income, whether it's farm income or business income or other income. They have lost income, and we know that. But we can see the studies that have actually affirmed that. Let's look at Zambia on the study that was done, the Household Monitoring Survey. They did round 1 and round 2. Round 1 was done in June 2020, and round 2 was done in December up to February this year. And this was based in Lusaka. It was a SNAP survey. And it was a 25-minute questionnaire and covered a lot of ground. One of them, they looked at the knowledge of COVID. They looked at mitigation measures. They looked at access to educational activities. They looked at employment dynamics. They looked at household income. They looked at livelihood. They also looked at income loss and coping strategies. And then, of course, the assistance that has been received. So there were 570 firms. These are companies, if you like. These were companies. 570 companies responded to this. Now, here are the results. Hoping you are able to see that. So we look at percentage of firms, or if you like, percentage of companies that were permanently or temporarily closed by the time of the survey round. So we first look at those that were permanently closed, and these are percentages. So overall, Zambia as a whole, between June, round 1 was in June, and December, January, February of this year, there was a loss between 3% and 5%. In other words, these are the companies closed. 3 to 5% of companies closed permanently. Okay? Now, they also looked at the size of the companies. So there are small companies that have 5 to 19 employees. Medium companies were about 20 to 99 employees. And then the large companies are 100 and above. And when you look at those, there's one message that is coming. Most of the small and medium companies or firms permanently closed. 5 to 6%, 3 to 6% closed. The larger companies were spared from closing completely. Of course, it's not like there was no large company that was, but there was a smaller percentage of large companies that closed. Now, when we look at confirmed temporarily closed, the first one was on permanently closed. The second tranche are those that were temporarily closed. And for this one, from round 1 to round 2, between June last year and December, if you like, or February this year, there was a change from 3% to 21%. So 1 in 5 companies overall temporarily closed. Now, when you look at the disaggregation between small, medium, and large, there was no difference generally. So in terms of temporal closure, almost every company, irrespective of what size it was, temporarily closed. Okay? So starting from the beginning of the outbreak up to now, or up to February this year, again you look, you see that 40 to 46% of companies temporarily closed and were confirmed to have temporarily closed. So you see the impact of COVID-19. And many of us know this, but the issue I think that usually comes is what then should have happened and what should happen to deal with such kind of impacts. So let's look at some little bit of detail of another study, the last study that I wanted to show, a Zambian study. This is the recover one. So this slide is just summarizing the measures that we took place. You remember, we put in place. You remember I mentioned that mitigation measures have an impact on the socio-economic status. So we had a partial lockdown in this country. We never had a full lockdown between 20th of March and 8th of May. And that basically summarized as closure of public schools, closure of restaurants, bars, cinemas, cross-border commercial travel. Then later on in April, there was a policy of wearing face masks in public. Then there was a suspension of tourist visas rather. And then there was closure of border with Tanzania. You remember when we had a big problem in Nakonde there. So these are measures that were put in place. Now, according to this study, 70% of respondents working in agriculture had altered planting, harvesting, or marketing of agricultural products because of COVID-19. Over 50% of employed individuals spent fewer hours working than they did in a typical week, obviously because they were told to work from home. Over 50% of employed individuals had earned less pay than they did in a typical week. Again, many of us know that some companies either laid off their workers because they closed, or others paid them half their pay. Others paid them as much as little as 25% of their pay. So this is what happened. So now as we move on to finding some answers, we first look at factors associated with inadequate resilience during COVID-19. The first one is need to feel it to believe it. Feel it to believe it. Now, many people did not believe COVID-19 existed. Even now, you'll be surprised. There are a few people that still think that COVID-19 is not there. Now, that's the problem because then they did not take steps to prepare for it and deal with it. But there's an interesting factor that I found, the boiling frog problem. Has anyone in the audience heard about the boiling frog problem? Yes. The boiling frog problem is actually a big one. And I think many of us were caught napping because of that. This is a metaphor because the frog would be in this pan of water and the water is put on fire. It starts warming up. Now instead of it jumping out early enough, it delays and starts jumping out when it's too late and it's very hot. So it's caught up there. So doing nothing until it's too late is a boiling frog problem. And it is one of those challenges that we have had in responding to COVID-19. And I think you have heard, not just in terms of businesses, you have heard this problem in terms of why COVID-19 has not been really, dealt with the way that it's supposed to have been dealt with globally, because some people responded late. The third one is inadequate investments in business risk management, and the risk managers would speak to this. I listened carefully on Friday to our brother who was presenting, and I know Elder Male is an expert on this, and I won't speak much of it, but I will just refer to it later on in terms of the focus. The last factor is the can-do mentality trap. The can-do mentality trap is over-focus on positivism, where all will be well, said that all will be well. And they neglect, or we neglected what could go wrong and planned for the worst-case scenario. That is a problem. And can someone maybe just to interact a little bit with the people that are here? There is one country, one prominent world leader that fell into this trap. Who is that? And what did he say? I've given you a leakage. He was a world leader, and he fell into that trap. And he said something. And who is that leader? Which country? I'm sure you... Yes, my brother. I don't know if you need to speak through this. So for the sake of the people that are listening, would you want, or you can just mention it, I will repeat it. Yes, which country? Yes, Donald Trump, the US. Do you know what he said? It's just going to vanish. That's what he said. It will just vanish. So it does look like, this is just a fairy tale, but this has actually happened and cost a lot of, lives. So yes, we're not saying we should not be positive, but positivity does not mean neglect of cautiousness. That's where the problem is. I always tell people that for me, all my plans are planning for the worst case scenario. Because if the best case scenario comes, that is fine. And I'm sure that our elder here, if he was going to talk to us, he will agree with that. He's a business expert. And he's a leadership expert. And he will tell us that when you are planning, you plan for the worst case scenario. But if you say because all will be well, and you forget to plan for the worst case scenario, then that's a problem. All right, so now, the next few slides, which I'm going to end with, is looking at strategies to increase businesses' resilience. How do we cope with the situation? How do we prevent a situation whereby our companies will fold because of a public health emergency? This is what I'm now going to talk about. And again, like I started with some quotations, I was inspired by specific quotations also in that realm. The first one is by Tom. Tom and his friends wrote an article on risk, and the title is Risk Strengthening Business Resilience After COVID-19. Strengthening Business Resilience After COVID-19. And here's what I have quoted from their write-up. If we accept that we can't predict the future just by reviewing the past, and if the fragility of our global systems has increased, the key thing we need from our business resilience system is to sense what is happening in real time, constantly update our predictions, and allow us to take early action before a major risk escalates. Again, you know what this is responding to when I was looking at the factors? The frog mentality. Remember? This is the frog mentality. Now we need to fight the frog mentality. We need to act early. That's basically what he's saying. So meaning that we need to sense what is happening in real time. So we need to be to listen to what is happening and follow what is happening. Constantly update our predictions or our projections, and then take early action before a major risk escalates. So the second one that I also looked at that helped me think through in terms of how we respond is that is from Frederick. Frederick, 19th century German philosopher, and this one said, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." What that means is that we should stay focused, we should not lose hope, we should devise ways to strengthen our businesses. As long as we are alive, as long as the business has actually not died, we should make sure we stay focused, do not lose hope, but devise ways to strengthen our businesses. The other one was by Richard Branson, and here's what he said, and many of these characters, you know them already. He said, business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. I found this interesting, because many times when we lost an opportunity, we think nothing else will happen. And many times that's what we think. A lost opportunity will not come back. Yes, that particular opportunity will not come back. But I think Richard Branson was positive and said, business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. So I think that is a good way of looking at new opportunities and looking for new opportunities when you have lost one. Now, this is not an end slide. It's also another quotation. And this particular quotation was from Angela Duckworth. And basically had a book, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. And, but I like what she said. She said, as much as talent counts, effort counts twice. Now, in a time of crisis, in emergencies like this, while we look at all the expertise we have in a company, the message here is that we need to double our efforts. We need to do more than just looking at the resources that we have. Okay? Here's another one. And this one was by Victor. And Victor was a psychiatrist that had survived the Holocaust. I think you are aware of the Holocaust. And he has written a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And here's what he said. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. I think that is very, very important. In other words, we may not change the situation that has been brought about by COVID-19. And COVID-19 is likely to be with us. But it means we need to reorient our businesses. We may need to change our products and services. For example, we may start producing emergency response products, and many companies have done that. Here's another one that's related to that, by Jimmy Dean. I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. So we are blown by the wind of COVID. We may not be able to change that wind. Right now we are hoping that wave number 4 is not going to come. And we may actually, hopefully, change that direction of the wind from wave 1, wave 2. That's the direction. The direction has been wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. Here's where we are. And there's a possibility that we may not change that direction. We may go to wave 4. But what Jimmy is saying, that even if we are not able to change that direction, we may be able to adjust our sails to reach our destination. So let me summarize in just 2 slides in terms of strategies to increase our business resilience during public health emergencies. Number 1 is that we need to strengthen our business risk management plan. And that business risk management plan should include health emergencies at the local level within the business itself, at the country level, at the regional level, and at the global level. So that risk management plan should not just look at within the business itself. It should look at outside the business at country level, at the regional level, at the global level. Now, WHO has come up with a COVID-19 innovation plan, and that research and innovation plan is meant not just to deal with COVID, it's meant to deal with the future emergencies. Today we are dealing with the COVID. Some years back we were dealing with Ebola, just in neighboring Congo. Some years back we were dealing with SARS. Who knows after COVID what will come? So for us, we need to make sure that we are looking at our businesses. We should include in our risk management plan how to deal with the health emergencies. Second is to orient our business focus. We change our focus in terms of products and services to basically fit with the situation that arises. The third is that, and very important, is that we need to invest in public health security. Globally now, there's a big focus on what is called public health security. That's why the African Union has come up with what's called Africa CDC. That is basically a body that is meant to deal with global health security or public health security. And each country now has what's called National Public Health Institutes. These are meant to focus specifically on public health security. But what I'm saying is that it should not end at the country level. You as a business owner should incorporate public health security within your institution. And that includes not limited to having a staff insurance, health insurance scheme that many of you have. It includes forming a public health emergency preparedness and response committees, and it includes budgeting for health emergencies or setting up an emergency preparedness fund. I think I end there. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was a good presentation and interesting statistics, insights, and I would call them nuggets from the courts cited. Do we want to take some few questions for Prof? Or from this session, what have we picked from it? Why I heard somebody say very insightful. Why have you said very insightful? This session basically helps us to begin to understand the extent of how this corona pandemic affected businesses. And it shows that from what it has done, there are lessons we can extract so that we can know how to respond and avoid what could potentially damage us if the fourth wave came. It's called a preparedness thinking that is being driven to us. How do we mitigate? Because remember, I think those of you who were there in the morning, I said some of these things we may not prevent, we may not have the capacity to prevent, but we can build some levels of resilience that will help us to reduce the impact of these happenings on our businesses and on ourselves in the marketplace. Because when you're in the marketplace, you can be that person that is finding one way of surviving in your life in the marketplace. It could be in a form of running a barbershop. What did you learn from the happenings last time? You remember people were debating, can you go and you have your hair cut in a barbershop during Corona? Was it safe? The guy is barbing your hair and is breathing in your face. You're in a saloon and this lady is handling your hair, or we just revert to wearing wigs and we sort it out. So what do we do? And so if you are running a saloon, you begin to position yourself that if everybody is going to close, what can I do that I remain afloat when everybody is closed? And if many are closed and I'm the only one remaining, I have the privilege to push my price up and people have no option but to come to me. I have got the privilege to extend my working hours and still be able to do better. So whilst everybody is crying that they're going down, you will be celebrating that with this COVID, our business has gone up. So these are the things that we are talking about. Yes, Doc?
I have a question for Prof. From your statistics, it looks like the bigger companies didn't have much impact from the COVID-19. What could you stress could have been the major reason as to why maybe smaller to medium companies had a higher rate of closure in that regard?
Thank you so much, our overseer. Thank you so much, Dr. Chisulo. I think for me, I think that the bigger companies had more resilience, had more inbuilt resilience features. Most bigger companies are more organized, they have more staff, they have more money, and they have more well-built emergency preparedness plans. And I was looking at Elder Mali and I was thinking Elder Mali is the right person to answer this question. But that's my thinking. Thank you.
Especially at the local front, there is usually less amount of investment in anticipative thinking. We don't so much anticipate. We like to sell in the moment. And we think it's a waste of money to look ahead and put measures. Because usually our local businesses are around the now. And if there is too many, that's why you can even afford that. There are so many clients, you're overwhelmed, you can even say, Fendelanuko, Fendelanuko. You can even shout at your clients because you believe we are in business. The customer service is not very good. The way we approach quality issues, consistency issues is not that up to the mark because we believe we are in business. We don't foresee that there's something that can arise that wipes us out. So, but then the bigger entities have done that. I'm being helped by my wife that also local companies do not invest in building systems. Systems are very important. Systems development. I'm not talking about computers. I'm talking about procedures and way of doing things, of conducting your business. If I went into a saloon, or again I'm using a saloon because we can associate, or a barber shop, I asked this guy, so how do you relate with your clients, those who come frequently? He has not thought much about it. He just deals with it as it goes or as it comes. But meantime, bigger companies have invested. They want to even know, this man who comes to my barbershop, where does he live? What does he do? Is he happy with what we do when he comes here? What normally brings him back? What is it that we could improve so that it makes him a more loyal client to us? So they invest in things like that. But the local companies, Kulibe, you're selling your vegetables, they come and buy, you're happy. When they don't find, you just tell them, Kulibe. And that's, yeah, you're going. So when you are hit by a crisis like that, chances are that you're wiped. Because you didn't build a hedging fence around your business to ensure continuity. So preparedness, and it's not just these timbers I'm talking about. We've got businesses that are dealing with millions of kwacha, even dollars, that have not. There are people who I used to go to that office and get a contract. Then all of a sudden things have changed. This guy is fired. You don't know anybody anymore in that office, and you can't get any contract anymore. You relied on this one faithful worker who was doing everything correct, and boom, he's hit by COVID, he dies. You don't know how to do things. I was talking to somebody today. They are doing chickens in thousands, and I was asking, so where are you doing them from? From the farm. Okay, so do you have even a house on the farm where you go and camp there periodically? No, my guys are good. So I go and just spend time, and then I said to them, that's dangerous, because you've put everything in the hands of your worker. That faithful worker, should something take them away from there, your quality or everything will go down. We were running a fast food and takeaway business once upon a time in Solwezi, and in Kasama. We were competing favorably with Galitos, Nando's. We used to even manage to get our staff, people moving from those to us, because we were paying better. Our conditions of service, our trainings were far much better than these. It surprised us initially, but then we realized that there is not much investment in personnel in these entities. So we're able to keep these guys good. But there is a point we discovered: when we are away from the business for some time, we begin to receive phone calls from clients, because we had put our phone numbers that you can contact us and chat if you are willing to. So they will call us and say, we notice you are out. How? Eventually our clients noticed that when we are in the vicinity, the quality of the burgers they were eating and the other products were top notch. When we were away, the workers were compromising the quality. That's the downside of local businesses, because there are certain things we would not have put in place, and that's what somebody says. Sometimes we believe we are entrepreneurs when we are not. You're just a professional who's doing some business. Because if your business has been running for some years and you can't take leave from it, there is a problem there. Because then the business is you. No matter how much you have patented or registered it as a limited liability company, for as long as you can't take leave and stay away from it, there is not much that you have done yet. You need now to begin to invest in bringing other people that can hold the business, and you are able to move in and out or begin to take certain other strategic roles while the operational roles are being handled by these guys, and you're able to monitor. Then you know your business will continue. So issues of continuity in businesses are critical, and we need to begin to think and look at that. In farming, there are these things that we need to think about. It's not about just getting a plow, sow seed and walk away and you expect a harvest. There is a lot that needs to be thought through. And we believe that in some workshops to come, we should be able to do some specific workshops on fish farming, poultry, and all these piggery and all, because a lot of our people are going into these spaces. Amen. How many would like us to do things like that? How many here are building houses? Hello? How many have more than 2 houses? One you are living in, one is on rent. Okay, so how many of you have sat down and thought about the other house or other houses as a business, and you have begun to develop a business model for your houses? It's only Joel. So you see already what we are talking about. Then tomorrow you are going to be with the Lord. What happens? The structures are gone. I was talking to one of our elders who is seriously into property and says, it's not true when people say you can't go wrong in property business. And I want to tell you it's not true. And some of us also have made some errors in business. When we are thinking investment, we have started to do building, and we have not done what the Bible says. We've not counted the cost before starting the journey. What has just informed us is we need to build. So you build this, you get this piece of land, and you set out this cheap big house that has got 7 bedrooms. You reach window level, you are stuck and stuck for good. And it remains at that level. You can't have even space to get a loan to do things to finish. Have you seen my houses like that for a long time? As you walk around, some of us who walk in the good places, we were raised in these areas, you see a lot of it's waiting completion, but the one to come and complete it is not showing up. You've seen those kind of things, eh? What goes wrong? What happens around that? Okay, so my mother here is saying it's sometimes lack of planning or projection or being smart. You want to start huge things and go. I don't know if you have walked in places like Matero. You've seen some houses, all the doors are leading into the veranda, right? You know those houses, eh? And some of you may laugh, but there was a reason why they did houses like that then. Those were the low-cost houses, because those houses, the kitchen can be used as a kitchen in the day, in the night it could be a bedroom. Hello? How many know what I'm talking about? And some of us have slept in a kitchen before. What's your problem? Well, it was foundations, and today we are where we are. You will miss it. Prof has slept in a village before, haven't you? But he's a prof today and a serious senior man in the health sector. Humble beginnings. Now, what you should do sometimes when you know you don't have resources, go for plans like that. Because you can finish one room and it gets complete. Even somebody begins to rent before you go to the next room. And then move to the next room. Strategic thinking will help you to go somewhere. Hello? We have little resources. Let's think through these things very well. If I do my 50 by 3 beds, meters, 50 meters by 3 meters of vegetables, I've learned that I can produce more than 50 to 100 bunches of rape from there. And if I multiply that by 3 kwacha, so 3 kwacha multiplied by 100 is how much? 300 kwacha. So this is just a stretch of, in fact, 1.5 by 50. So if you attach another one, you've multiplied that by 2. You do another one, you've multiplied by 3. You've gone to the 4th one. You call that a plot. That's how we have proceeded to do the planting of our vegetables. So you find on a small stretch of land, on a day, we are able to make over 1,500 kwacha. Who can give you that amount every other day? Hello? But it's a small piece of land. Some of you have pieces of land. Before you build, use it to generate income that can help you to sort out some things that leverage you to the next level. My pockets are cement. Cement has gone down lately, eh? I saw some prices of cement somewhere at some point, but of course cement was on the rise at some point. So you must watch the market. When is it that you're going in and when you're going out? You must watch the market. How much is the price of a block? You must watch the market. Then it will help you. Amen. Have we helped each other? Hello? And are we being practical with what we are talking about? Okay, so let's look at some of these things and see how we help ourselves. In Solwezi, at one point in time, when we were at the Solwezi church, we encouraged some youngsters to say, get a big plot of land. It costs cheaper to get a bigger piece than to get a smaller piece. And 4 of you come together. If you get 100 by 100, you can share it, 4 of you. What size of pieces of land do you come up with if you did that? 20? No. It's 50 by 50s that you end up producing. So if you team up together, you may find sometimes you are able to get certain things where you leverage from. If you can't get land in the city, get in the outskirts and do some things, then you can come back into the city when you've grown. There is still room for many Zambians to own property. Our sister the other day was talking about it, that the deficit for plots is how many? More than 3 million for Zambia, homes. The deficit for housing units is about 3 million. So if you throw 2 or 3 of your own, you should be able to get a person who is renting from you. Should you address the issue of size, do a research. Which one is going faster? If you are in an area where there are youngsters that are just leaving school, they easily will fit into your 1 rooms. And you have rent. Hello? And don't kill yourself with the finishes. Do easy finishes. Don't complicate life. We leave that for the other day. Let the experts say something in a few minutes, then we will have a panel discussion as we prepare to transition into the evening session.
Okay, good afternoon. I think as I was listening to Elder Mwale, I was like, wow, he sounds like he works for Zambian Home Loans. He seems to understand most of his products, and I'm excited that, he can mention and encourage each one of us to build, and each one of us to build what we can afford at that time. I think very important. Before I proceed, I'd love to just, thank our Father in the Lord, our Bishop, for according us this opportunity to speak to you today, and also acknowledge our Council of Elders, acknowledge our chairperson for the professional and business conference today. We also acknowledge our Reverend Chisolo in the house today. So we're grateful to be part of this event. And like I mentioned in the presentation yesterday, we want to just mention why we decided to partner, with the Professionals Conference. We believe in the vision that the Bishop carries, which is building of a blessing city. And as an organization, as Zambian Home Loans, our vision is to bridge the housing deficit that the country is currently experiencing. And I think our elder has touched that briefly. But I also want to also just, we understand that most of the professionals that are in the house today are building, and we thought us being part of this event would bring financing back in the church and see how best we can help. And so we are excited to be part of this event. Maybe I'll probably just go straight into defining, describing who we are, when we started, and what we do. For the sake of those that didn't, attend the presentation yesterday, didn't attend the conference yesterday, would want to just give you a recap of what we do, so that when you have time, you could visit our offices or give us a call and visit our desk in the foyer to see how we can help you, finish that house, for instance. And so Zambian Home Loans was established in 2014. Yes, we've been in the Zambian financial services industry for over 7 years now. We are regulated by the Bank of Zambia, yes, designated as a financial business under the Business and Financial Services Act. So we actually not a microfinance institution. Now, before we get to actually defining, who we are, we thought also, we believe shelter is a basic right for every human. I think we can all attest to that. We need a roof, on our heads, and I think the elder has, labored a bit to actually, get us to understand that as well. We believe that housing also improves the welfare of our society, contributes to social and economic development of a country. But he also touched something very important. Zambia is facing a very critical shortage of housing. It's been facing this since independence. A research was done by CAF, which is Center for Affordable Housing Finance in Africa. And in their research, they did note that by 2030, Zambia will have a housing deficit of over 3 million. That's a huge gap, right? That's quite big. And so, of course, they did recommend that, a rate of over 150,000 units, if these are done annually, we could try and meet this demand, right? But I think the elder also did touch that, we are, as citizens trying to bridge this gap. When we build our own houses, we are trying to help bridge this gap. But like I did mention yesterday in my presentation that, look, the biggest elephant in the room is finance. We want to build, but you don't have finances to build. You want to start that project, and you really don't know where to start from. You have been building and you are stuck at a certain level for years. I will still want to cite an example, with the elder did mention that sometimes we plan big with what we really can't afford. You want to build a double story, but maybe you can only afford a 2-bedroom house. So build that 2-bedroom house, move in, stop paying rent, Sometimes you want to really think too big, build 5 flats to put on rent. If you can only afford to build 2, start with 2, and so that's where we come in as Zambian Home Loans. So what do? Our core business, we provide financing for anything to do with a home. You want to build, we can provide financing, 100% financing, from whatever level. It may be bare land, like I did cite an example. It may be at whatever level. You are stuck at roof level, you are stuck at wall level, and you want to finish your project. We can pick it from whatever level and complete it for you, You may be looking at buying land, for instance. We can finance up to 75% of the sale price. I think now is the best time to invest in land. Invest in that land. I think the professor did touch that at the time of, the COVID impact, most of the, working classes did invest in agriculture. Buy that land, set up a farm that will help you generate that second source of income. I did touch that yesterday. But also what we do is we provide home purchase. If you're looking at buying a house, we can finance. If you're looking at improving that house that you already have, we can finance. You want to, get equity from that house that you already have. I did mention yesterday also, just a recap, for those interests of those that were not around, that, when equity release, you're actually getting the value from the house that you already own. Sometimes you may have all these, opportunities that come your way, and you're looking for where can you, source finances to invest in that business, for instance. And we all rush to this getting Kalova, which we all are familiar with, right? But at Zambian home loans, when you go to get Kaluba, you're actually pledging 100%. The risk of losing a property is really high, right? But when you get a facility from Zambian home loans, you're only paying interest of about 2%, per month. And I think that's a good one, yeah? That's a good one. So get equity from that house. You can use it for anything else. You can use it to invest in a business. You can use it to buy another house. You can use it to, buy land elsewhere, because we will give you 50% of the value of that house. Right. Now, probably I would want to quickly go into why you should get a construction loan. Construction loans, when you come to Zambian home loans, you use your own contractors. For the sake of those that were not around yesterday, I would want to just quickly run you through what we do. So when you come to get a construction loan from Zambian home loans, you use your own designs. You use your own designs. Our quant surveyor will sit down with you, and we will do a BOQ aligning it to that type of house that you want to build. And I remember the elder did cite an example that, look, you don't have to build this double story, when you can only afford a 2-bedroom house. When we do the BOQ, we need to understand how much can this, client afford to borrow? Can they manage to finish his house, in what they can afford to borrow? So we'll do that assessment. From the onset, our goal is to ensure that the house is complete, right? So we will finance 100% of the cost of building from whatever level, right? It may be, like I did cite an example earlier, wall level or roof level, or fixtures and fittings. Sometimes that stage is very, very frustrating. You are at that stage, the house is almost done, but you can't move in, because maybe you can't do your fittings, or you can't, get your power installed. And you don't have finances to do that, or maybe you can't put a perimeter wall fence because you want security. So there are all those things that are probably very frustrating at that stage, and we can all agree that the biggest challenge we have is finance, right? And so you get stuck because you don't know where to get finances from. So Zambian home loans, we will provide 100% of a cost of building from whatever level, right? What we've also done as an organization, as a value add, is we will link you to the various building material suppliers, right? Where you can buy your materials at a discounted price, okay? But we don't really restrict you to that list. You can source from your own suppliers. So that's another plus for you. We will provide you technical support. We've got our own internal quant surveyor that will guide you through the whole process, like I mentioned earlier. First of all, we'll sit down with you, run you through, the cost of building of that type of house. But over and above that, we will handhold you through the whole process. So we'll not, leave you alone to build that house. We will offer you technical support where we can, but you are fully in charge of your project. The only thing we come in is provide financing. I did mention, I think I did hear our professor touch the issues of insurance in terms of, the COVID pandemic. Our loans are insured under credit life. In case anything happens to you, in terms of death, we don't wish that for anyone. But in case, we get to that stage, something happens to you, insurance covers, the loan. They pay off the balance outstanding at the time of death, that's one. And also the titles are handed over to the next of kin or administrator. So we hand over the titles to, the next of kin or administrator. So you are guaranteed, your loans are insured. They also are insured under fire in case anything happens to the house. You are covered under fire insurance. So our loans, of course, are within a period of 5 days. I think yesterday I did cite that. Very, very, very exciting, yeah? Within a period of 5 days, you'll have your loan dispersed, and we're good to go. We're good to go to help you build that house. Right now, our interest rate, we are the lowest on the market. It's at 21.25, and I would want to say this is the best time to get a mortgage, right? So for that, listening in, we would love you to know if you're looking at getting a mortgage, this is the best time to get a mortgage. One would ask, who's eligible? Who's eligible to get this loan? If you're in formal employment, we will, look at your pay slips, because then we need to understand how much you're earning. I did mention that earlier, so we can do an assessment to see how much you can afford to borrow. But what type of building is acceptable for Zambian home loans? We finance residential properties. It may be a standalone house, it may be a double story, it may be flats that you're building, you want to probably rent them out, we can finance, okay? But if you've already started building, I know somebody would ask, if I've already started building and I'm stuck at a certain level, can you finance? Yes, we can. We can pick it from that level and complete the project for you, okay? But can I use title that is in somebody else's name? Yes, you can, provided they're able to give you consent to use, that title that is in that person's name. Now, one other challenge that I've noticed that we sometimes face, for those that are working, is you probably have other loans with other financial institutions, right? That may be at a high rate, at a high interest rate. So we can refinance. What is refinancing? Refinance is simply just changing the structure of your finance, right? You can either change that to increase the tenor, okay, so that the installment reduces. So that's, one plus that comes with that. Or you can change the structure of a loan so that the interest rate goes down, reduces down. Now, you are simply just moving your debt to a better position, right? Maybe what you're on is a higher interest rate, but what we're offering at Zambian Home Loans is at 21.25, which is a lower rate. So move that loan, refinance that loan, and when you do that, you will have a better position, in terms of your debt. You will get a lower rate, or we will extend the tenor so that the installment reduces. But what that does come with, in terms of the benefit that comes with refinancing, sometimes if you're comfortable with the same installment that you're paying, we will leave it at that installment. But what that does, that it immediately gives you disposable income. You have that 50,000, extra 100,000 that you can use to, invest in other things, So that's another plus that comes with. And also the reduced installment, the lower interest that comes with that. So the income that you'll be paying probably for that month, because the installment has reduced, will go up, right? So those are things that we do at Zambian Home Loans. So what am I saying? In summary, we are here to provide a solution. We all want to build, your project is at bare land stage, you don't have finances to start building, where do you go? This is where we come in. We can help you build that house in 3 months, if it's from bare land stage, or you have been building, like Elder Mwale did cite an example, you're passing through this, area, and there are all these projects that are stalled for years, you failed to finish. We can all attest, sometimes we are at that stage, because then your progress is very slow. You push in a 2,000 this month, the next month you push in a 50,000 to do your roof, and you're stuck at that level, So we come in and provide financing from whatever level. So we'll help you, finish your house. If it's at roof level, we will complete it within a month. You should be done building your project, right? So we're here to, provide a solution. This is something that we can all attest to. Finance is the biggest, challenge that we all face. And for those that are building, we are available to actually give you that solution to build your house in the shortest possible time. So Zambian Home Loans is happy to be part of the professionals conference, and we are encouraging all of you, the members of Bread of Life, to visit our desk at the foyer, but give us a call, where we can sit down with you, run you through. I know I was actually running through the presentation very quickly because of time, but we can, sit down with you and explain to you all this in detail and all the terms and conditions around our products. So thank you so much once again, our chairperson, for according us this opportunity to just, for the benefit of those that didn't attend yesterday, to just quickly do a recap of what we do, and we'll be happy to have you visit our offices. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So if you can take some moment and visit the desk for the home loans people, that would be incredible, so that you discuss your specific scenario. Madam Miriam, thank you so much also for your partnering with us. There is a contractor there. You've seen that man there. Brickworld. Yes, that gentleman, you can see him and see how you can be part of the networking around the construction industry. I think we were talking earlier, there are some people that recommended some construction companies around the homestead infrastructure development. There they are. Amen. So it's good that we do this networking. It's called kingdom networking. If she has got some business, I give her, she gives me, we will move things. And that's how we sustain ourselves and hedge ourselves going forward. Amen. Let's quickly get into the session where we are interacting with our doctors. They're here. And as we welcome Dr. Mwanda, he's going to guide how they do this. And after we are done with this, we will go into the closing session. The guest speaker is on the way. The guest musician is also on the way, I've just been told. So we will close good and close big as we end today. I'm glad that you are here. If I can come and just sit here, even if I'm alone with God, I'm happy. But we are more than 2, 3, and we are gathered in His name. He's here in our midst. And in the closing session, our own regional overseer, Dr. Chisulo, will help us to get the conference closed good. Amen. Hallelujah. We welcome Dr. Kalasa Mwanda to the podium to facilitate this session. Do you want to stand and stretch a bit? You've been seated for some time. Yes, when you see a Lieutenant Colonel stretching, then you know, you need to stretch. If we had time, I was going to ask him to come here and cause us to do some here. Okay, you may be seated. God bless you.
Okay, thank you very much, Elder Dr. Mwale. And indeed, I'll ride on the earlier protocols that have been established. My role this afternoon is very simple, but before I get down to that role, just to remind somebody in the audience and all those that may be joining us via Facebook that we have come to a point when we discuss in some level of intricate detail COVID-19. Many a time we've been availed opportunities for us to share in a unilateral manner. You just deliver your message hoping the audience has gotten it. But this afternoon we have been availed a very unique opportunity to engage, interact with health professionals. I have a good panel for you this afternoon who will be able to answer some of the very important questions that you may be contemplating. Before I call upon my panel, I would like to mention that indeed Zambia has suffered 3 waves of COVID-19. And unfortunately, these waves have registered a greater impact as the number goes higher. Meaning and implying, the first wave came March, April, somewhere there, 2020, when we recorded our first case. It passed with very minimal impact. The second wave came, by the way, about 10 to 11 months ago, around November actually, November, December. It came with a slightly bigger impact. The country was slightly shaken. The third wave came, people of God, it wasn't pleasant. I know for a fact we had to call upon families to participate in the healthcare system once again These are the people that we are dejected from the hospitals. If you know what I mean. It's about 1630, 1730. If you go to Levy, you go to UTH, you find families flocking in with lunch boxes, drinking bottles, a Coca-Cola, some of them even a pizza if their patient is feeling better. We are dejected, that particular system. And it was for a good reason. When the third wave struck, we had to fall back on that social safety net. This time around, we are not calling them to bring lunch boxes and drinking bottles. We are calling them to bring oxygen cylinders. You won't hear this being said on many platforms, but that's the truth. And the truth of the matter is that some of the family members would be asked to bring an oxygen cylinder in the morning and come and pick it up late in the afternoon. High-flowing oxygen is what a number of patients were dependent on. That big cylinder that you see in a Zamox truck, it would finish in a number of hours to sustain this precious life, this Zambian life. It wasn't easy. In the evening, they have to bring another one. It wasn't pleasant at all. But this is something that we came out of in the third wave. So even when you see people taking COVID lightly, in some cases you feel like you just want to shake them to this reality. Because remember, not the lunch boxes and drinking bottles, it was oxygen cylinders. My prayer is that none of us should find themselves in that particular space. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'll call upon Dr. Victor Woa, Dr. Jackson Okuku, Dr. Sumbukeni Koa, and Dr. Rachel Chomba to come to the front. Please, you can take your seats. I have a few questions that have been put together by popular demand. There could be others that we include along the way, but these will help us set us up for a very good interactive session. And deliberately, we've enshrined space for people to ask questions. If you have a question, we're going to do it in a slightly different way this afternoon, so that we do not get bored by being stuck to our chairs for too long a period of time. Okay? Dr. Mwale indicated Ichilai. Lieutenant coming. I do some jogging in the morning, time and again, and those are some of the songs that ring into my mind. All right, so a bit of Ichilai, you come to the front, to this microphone, so that we also reduce on the handling of microphones, and you pose your question. Is that okay, people of God? Okay, great. So my first question, ladies and gentlemen, goes to Dr. Victor Woa. And the question is, does COVID-19 have treatment? Is there a treatment for COVID-19? Dr. Woa, you can take up the question, and please go right ahead.
can categorize in terms of supportive management, because COVID-19 can be categorized into, it can be a mild disease, can be moderate or severe. So based on the disease severity, there is evidence-based treatment or interventions that have been put in place to help treat and prevent the complications that may arise as a result of COVID-19 infection. So some of the supportive treatments, as you heard from the doc, patients may be put on oxygen therapy, which is just supportive. We've heard of people being put on vitamin C, probably some medication to dampen the process of the infection, which is the inflammatory process. So all that is being done for now is more like just supportive treatment, as evidenced by the manual from Ministry of Health 2020. But the current management might change depending on the emerging evidence, because research is still ongoing, because this is a novel virus, so more is being put in place to really understand it and come up with probably.
Thank you very much. So if you have any questions, please just jot them down. We'll open it up for interaction at a certain point. Now, there's one thing that is called in medical circles as sequelae. In other words, if we break that one down, we are talking of after effects or complications of a particular disease. Dr. Boa, are there any documented forms of sequelae after one has suffered COVID-19 disease?
Thank you very much, Doc, once again. So I'll do a few quotations like the professor. Sorry, I didn't type some of the citation. I would have loved to just show as the prof did it, but allow me just to refer to some reported evidence of the complications in relation to COVID-19 disease. So COVID-19, as I earlier mentioned, it mainly affects the lungs, but it can as well affect other organ systems. It can affect other organ systems besides the lungs. So there's an article that was reported by 1W and a tool, that is 2020, titled Clinical Features of Patients Infected with COVID-19. That demonstrated to say COVID-19 does not necessarily just affect the lung, but any other organ system can be affected. And then there's another report, an article by Chen N. et al. 2020, titled Epidemiological and Clinical Characteristics of 99 cases of COVID-19 pneumonia. It showed to say that the patients, about 15% of cases of critical disease were found to have renal impairment, or in simple terms, renal failure or kidney failure. And the same article also reported that about 20% of patients with severe COVID-19 disease had cardiac complications or heart complications. So in short, these two articles demonstrate to say that a patient with severe COVID disease may end up with renal failure, and they may end up having what is known as renal replacement therapy or dialysis, meaning they will be more like on a machine support in terms of renal function. Or they may end up with heart failure as a long-term complication. Other than that, reports have been put across as evidence from MOH manual that COVID-19 patients, the severe form, can actually present like a complication in terms of stroke. Patients with COVID-19, some end up having a stroke, others end up having mental or cognitive impairment, where they are having memory lapses. Others have ended up having psychiatric disorder. Others have ended up having erectile dysfunction. Others, they experience what is called like needles and the pins, flick sensation in the body. Others have ended up having, fatigue or muscle weakness, whereby they can't like walk or mountain or climb a mountain. They easily get tired. Why? Because of the excessive fatigue. So others also, they've developed difficulties in swallowing, and also some kind of throat discomfort. Others have been reported to have like lost sense of smell, and then others have ended up having diabetes mellitus or even hypertension because of COVID-19 as a sequel. So those are some of the reported and documented complications of COVID-19, especially the severe form. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chomba. And those who may have questions, please hold on to them as we quickly run through the next 4 to 5 questions. My next 2 questions go to Dr. Rachel Chomba. And the first one is, how do vaccines work? Earlier today, we were privileged that you took us through, in a very passionate manner, your experience working at the COVID center, and you encourage people to take up the vaccine. Now, I would like to hear, how do these vaccines work? That's the first question. The second question is something a number of people have asked me about as well, but today we're privileged that the doctor will explain to the audience how come this COVID-19 vaccine has been developed so fast. We've lived almost 31 years with HIV. There's no vaccine to talk home about to date. Now with COVID-19, barely a year, we have 13 vaccines. How come with COVID? Over to you, Dr. Chomba.
Hello? Oh, okay. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Dr. Kalasa. And I must mention, I'm very privileged to be on the same platform as my mentors and my teachers. Yes. I am studying pediatrics and child health, and I would like to help us understand the questions from a background of vaccines for children, because that's my specialty. And I think because when we use that as a background, we can all relate to it. When a baby is born, we take our babies for BCG, and all of us have a mark here, isn't it? How many of us don't have a BCG mark? Apparently, I don't have one, but yes, I'm one of the very few cases. But then just that mark that is formed is an induration because of an immune reaction that has happened to a vaccine. So how vaccines work is that either an organism, or rather, how do I explain it in lay terms? A pathogenic organism, or that bacteria or that virus that causes disease, either the virus or the organism itself, or part of it, or even the organism is killed, and then it is introduced into the body system. And then all our body systems have this programmed reaction to foreign things, especially foreign things that can cause disease. So what a vaccine does is, when it is introduced into the body, it stimulates an immune response. Your body is going to be sensitized that something foreign has happened. And so it's going to mechanize a way of dealing with that organism so that in the future, when this kind of organism is introduced into the body can better fight that organism, and it won't take so long for the body to fight off that organism and thereby prevent or shorten the duration of disease. I don't know if I was being too technical, but basically that's how vaccines work. So either the organism, but by organism I mean it's a virus, it's a bacteria, or whatever organism it could be. Sometimes scientists will go to the lab, they may kill the virus. I'll give an example of a virus, because in this case we're dealing with the virus, the coronavirus. They may kill it, put it, package it, and then introduce it into the body. And a vaccine will only work when there is an immune system that is working. That is why, for example, in an AIDS patient, and I didn't say an HIV patient, and I didn't say HIV positive patient, an AIDS patient, a patient whose immune system is almost gone. This patient cannot be able the vaccine will not be potent because there is no immune system to talk about. What that will just do is that small organism, no matter how harmless it may be considered to be, it can actually cause disease when there is no immune system. I hope, I can't see everyone's facial expressions. I hope I'm getting through. Please, you can raise your hand if I'm being too technical, like you're not getting what I'm saying. So basically, that's how a vaccine works. And we know about BCG, how that it prevents severe forms of TB. Remember that we are not saying that if we vaccinate a baby, then they'll never have TB. That's not what we're saying. We vaccinate against TB to prevent severe forms of TB, and that's so much like the COVID-19 vaccine. So the BCG will prevent severe forms of TB like TB meningitis and TB spine or other very invasive forms of tuberculosis. So it's the same thing with the COVID-19 vaccine. You may get the vaccine, and we keep emphasizing that it doesn't mean that you will never get COVID-19, but then you may get only mild forms or moderate forms and most likely not need to be hospitalized. Dr. Kalasa is standing up. I'm only done with one question.
You've done well. So the other question is on why so fast?
Oh.
The COVID-19 vaccine has been developed with breakneck speed. We're still grappling with a vaccine for HIV. Okay. Why so fast?
Okay, so as a matter of fact, because I'm a student myself, I happened to stumble upon some articles I was reading around vaccines for children, and then I found the name Pfizer. And this Pfizer is the same Pfizer that has been associated with the Pfizer-BioNTech prestigious vaccine that is prevalent in the UK. And when I read up on it, because what I was reading on was the oral polio vaccine. So this helped me to understand that these guys have been doing vaccines from as early as 1974. So then, first of all, vaccines against viruses are not new. Remember that in the past we've had outbreaks, epidemics, we had polio, and we've had so many more before. So when we try to compare, say for example, HIV and coronavirus, it takes an understanding of how these viruses work for us to be able to evaluate and to be able to understand why we have a vaccine for COVID and why we don't yet have a vaccine for HIV, for example. So, but then what I would like to reiterate is that vaccine technology for viruses has actually, it's collided with the COVID-19 pandemic. There's been new technology that's been happening on the background. And when I give an example of polio, for example, in Zambia, we are still receiving oral polio vaccine for children. In the West, they've done away with that. They use the inactivated polio vaccine. So you begin to see that this technology of vaccines against viruses has actually been ongoing for as far back as many years. And so it happened at the time when there's been newer technology and breakthrough in science. And then as to address HIV and coronavirus, I think it would take us to understand how this virus causes disease. So when we look at the coronavirus, it attaches itself to cells that are expressed by a particular enzyme that is found mostly, predominantly in the lungs. Yes, it may be found in the heart, in the brain, in the kidneys, but in the lungs mainly. That's why the most common manifestation of COVID is COVID pneumonia. That's why patients will be breathless, they'll need oxygen, but lung cells, they don't live forever. They are being broken down because that's how the body is made. Therefore, this coronavirus is not permanent. But when you give an example of HIV, HIV attaches itself to cells of the immune system. Now remember, I say that for us to have a vaccine, we need a potent immune system. Now imagine if the virus has targeted the immune system, then how are we going to come up with a vaccine? So that's been the bone of contention, and that's why it's been so hard to break through. Another reason is that the HIV virus, it hides itself in brain cells. And brain cells are cells that last a lifetime. So imagine that's why it's lifelong, because these brain cells are not being regenerated. I hope I tried to do justice to your question.
Definitely. Thank you very much. And I will quickly move on to two questions for Dr. Koa before we open it up. And the first one is, why is it that we receive vaccines that are different from what people in developed world like America, the UK, Germany are given? That's the first question to Dr. Koa. Maybe you can take that one up before we pose the second one. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mwanda. So the question is, why are we receiving vaccines which are different from the ones which are produced in the Western world? In Zambia, we have received at least, there are 3 different types of vaccine. There's one called the AstraZeneca. There's one called developed by Johnson & Johnson. And then there's a third one produced by the Chinese called Sinopharm. So the AstraZeneca produced vaccine, which we produced, which I'm not audible. No, I'm not audible.
I think you can go right ahead. We can hear you, sir.
All right. So, the AstraZeneca produced vaccine, which we got in Zambia, was produced, the first batch was produced in India by the Serum Institute. of course, it's under license from the manufacturer. And then any vaccine before it came into the country, I would like to assure everybody that all the vaccines underwent what is called emergency use authorization by the World Health Organization. They have a panel of hundreds of scientists who look over the production phase of this vaccine, the efficacy, how effective it is, the safety, okay? So all that, and the quality is assessed. So all the vaccines, before they came into the country, had this emergency use authorization granted. So you can rest assured that the vaccines were received, even though it was produced in India, it has emergency use authorization. Same thing with the Sinopharm. The uptake hasn't been that great, but it has been assessed. It's of good quality, it has good effectiveness. The quality process of producing it has been assessed. It is above board. So you can rest assured the viruses we have in this country are as good as any vaccine that you can find anywhere else in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Koa. Your second question is very direct. This one comes from one of our young people, and they want to find out, does the COVID-19 vaccine cause any form of infertility, either in males or females?
Thank you. That's a very good question. Like Dr. Chomba was saying, the way the viruses work, the way the vaccines work, is that they have a targeted thing on in the body. So for COVID-19 vaccine, the target is what has been introduced. So the different types of vaccine, it's either a whole virus, a part of a protein, a subunit, either an RNA or a DNA fragment, or what is known as a viral vector. So the immune response is very specific for that particular unit which has been introduced. The reproductive unit, Doc, has its own mechanism, which has nothing to do with the immune system. So I can assure you there is no evidence that the vaccine causes infertility, either in males or females. In females, though, there has been some anecdotal reports where people report that maybe the menstrual cycle either stopped and they missed a few cycles, and then it probably started again. That's what we have so far. Just a few reports of maybe some menstrual disturbance. And for any of us here who have received the vaccine, please, we encourage you to report because data is still being generated. So I cannot say 100% for sure in females, but for males, there's absolutely no evidence that it will cause infertility. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, panel. At this point, for the next 15 to 20 minutes, we'll entertain questions from members of the audience. If you have a question, please feel free. We have one question already from Reverend. I'll ask us to be taking short walks, but for Reverend, well, there's a mic there. But for the others, please, you do well to come here. All you have to do is stand and ask your question. I was testing the mic. Over to you, Reverend.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doc, for the opportunity to ask a question. I think as a pastor, we have had some challenges trying to convince most of our members to actually get vaccinated. And I think this topic is very critical and very helpful to us. The following are some of the questions that have been asked. I have 3 questions for the panel. Maybe the doc will help to give them. But there are 3, so since there are 3 at the panel, maybe each one of them can pick one. The first one is, if you have had COVID-19, there is no need to vaccinate because you would have built a natural immunity. How true is this statement? One of my members confessed that some of the doctors, this statement has actually been coming from some of the doctors who have actually been telling people this particular statement, that if you have had COVID-19, there was no need to vaccinate, and when you vaccinated, you actually made a mistake because you would have actually built a natural immunity. Number 2, COVID-19 vaccines weaken the immune system. It is as good as not getting the vaccine. Is this statement true? Number 3.
Sorry, Reverend. Can you repeat the second question?
The second one. COVID-19 vaccines weaken the immune system. It is as good as not getting the vaccine. Is this statement true? Then thirdly, since the COVID-19 is evolving, we have had many waves. The COVID-19 vaccine was designed for the first wave. Why should I get vaccinated in the third wave? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Very insightful questions. And I'll ask the panel to take up one, leave the other for the other 2 until we finish the 3 questions. Over to you, panel, as we have agreed.
Reverend, just repeat the last one. The last question. Just repeat the last one.
The last one says, since the COVID-19 is evolving, we have had many waves. The COVID-19 vaccine that we are receiving was designed for the first wave. So why should I get vaccinated in the third wave?
Okay, thank you for that clarity. And in other words, as we have heard, there's been the Delta variant. There's been the Gamma variant. With the vaccines that we are receiving, are the vaccines still effective against the new variants? In other words, that's a very good question from Reverend. Over to you, panel.
Thank you very much. So I'll take up the first question about natural immunity versus vaccine-induced. So natural immunity is the best immunity, okay? So the best way is to get that particular infection, recover, and then the body builds immunity against it, okay? So that's the best form of defense. Remember, with COVID, most of the people who want to get vaccinated are either those who have not been exposed, so that you now induce the body to produce that immunity, okay? So vaccine-induced immunity is also good. It can wane, of course, over time and become less effective. So even someone who has had COVID before and has built natural immunity, it wanes over time. So the vaccine is just to boost up the immune process, okay? But otherwise, just to make it clear, natural immunity is the best form of immunity. I hope that has done justice.
So the other question, panel?
Okay, so I think if I got the question correct, it's asking whether the vaccine destroys a person's immunity, right? Okay, So it's amazing how God has created the body. I like how that even Dr. Elder Mwale, Stephen Mwale, was talking about how big companies have systems in place. God has created the body's immune system, and it works very systematically. So when the COVID vaccine is introduced into the body, it actually boosts the immunity of the person as opposed to destroying it, because it's like exercising. It recruits all these memory cells, the lymphocytes, and these cells that are meant to fight disease. Imagine the body has cells that are waiting for something to go wrong, or something foreign to come in, and then they are activated. And these cells last in the blood system for a long time, and they will be useful in the event that that particular organism is introduced into the body again. So I would categorically say that COVID-19 does not destroy one's immunity. The only contraindication or that we would give for the COVID-19 vaccine could be maybe a person who does not have an immune system. For example, we have conditions like primary immunodeficiency diseases, we call it PIDs, or like I said, AIDS in the final stage. Yeah, but otherwise for a healthy person, your body will just be exercising the cell system how it was meant to work. So no, it does not destroy one's immune system.
Thank you, Dr. Chomba. Dr. Wowa, the other question?
I'll relate it to the point that was raised by the Prof in his presentation. The question is, why should I get vaccinated when I've got different variants of COVID-19? And in the professor's presentation, he mentioned of what I can call the boiling frog problem, where they are doing nothing till it is too late. So the idea is, of course, we've got different variants, Delta variant and the like, and mostly the vaccines available actually have been developed against the Delta variant. But what we are trying to prepare is to prepare to prevent you from getting a severe form of COVID-19. So, despite the different variants, you can be encouraged actually to get vaccinated so that you prepare yourself from getting a severe form of COVID-19. Why? Because your body will have built some immunity to respond against even the different variant, as it were. So, it's important, despite different variants, get vaccinated so that you avoid getting the severe form of coronavirus disease. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those responses. We'll take 3 more people to ask questions. The first one comes from Professor Biemba, and then we'll come to our colleague here, and then our brother, and then our sister. Those 3, and then we'll take up another set.
Sorry, I hope I'm audible from here. Okay. So mine is actually not a question, just an addition to emphasize what Dr. Kowa said in terms of that question that Reverend has been asked several times, to say, because I have been infected with COVID, therefore I don't need the vaccine. I just want to emphasize what Dr. Kowa has said. The answer is no, you do need, yes, you do need to be vaccinated. Just make it very clear. Now, what I want to say, and he rightly said, the natural immunity is the best. The problem we have is that with COVID-19, we don't know how long that lasts. So, but I want to encourage you that there is question and answer from the World Health Organization. every time when you have a question, the best authority is the World Health Organization. Why? Because the World Health Organization uses expert evidence to put it together and come up with the answers. And there's a specific question, the same question, Reverend, you have asked from WHO. And I just want to read the answer now. So the question is indicated from WHO, and it says, should I be vaccinated if I had had COVID-19? Answer, even if you have already had COVID-19, you should be vaccinated when it is offered to you. The protection that someone gains from having COVID-19 will vary greatly from person to person. The immunity people get from being vaccinated after having a natural infection is consistently very strong. That's what Dr. Kowa was saying. Getting vaccinated, even if you have had COVID-19, means you are more likely to be protected for a longer period. So I think that is the answer there, so that there's no ambiguity here. If you have been infected with COVID-19, yes, you have an immunity. It is uncertain how long that will be. So you are advised to get vaccinated. That's the answer.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that clarity. Our brother, next question.
Thank you very much. I have a question concerning Vaccinate. My question is, how voluntary is that? I've heard some news and I've heard the report to certain people. They said if you did not vaccinate, you are not going to be employed. And even if you want to travel, if you don't have that certificate of vaccinate, you can't travel. Now, how voluntary is that? Because I've heard that to get a vaccinate is voluntary. So how vaccinate is that? That's my question.
Thank you very much, and very good question for that matter. We are saying it is not a forcing matter, but we have seen structural measures deliberately targeted at people who refuse to take the vaccine. Then, indeed, how voluntary is vaccination against COVID? Panel?
That's a very good question. In Zambia, speaking for our country, we have said that it's incumbent upon you yourself as the individual, okay? The state has not said everybody 18 and above should get vaccinated. It's upon you yourself, okay? So if in Zambia, you will not be affected with your employment application, you will not be affected with any other no travel restrictions, etc. However, we live in a global village, and in other parts of the world, they've decided to be more strict because they do not, or because of what they've gone through, they don't want that type of experience. And because of that, they've made their measures more strict, okay? So whereas here it's voluntary, if you want to travel to another part of the world where it's more strict, then unfortunately you may have to now comply with the rules which have been set in another part of the world. So yeah, it's a very good question. So in other areas, they've decided to be more strict. Here in Zambia, you know, we've left it up to individuals to make the choice. So that's where we are. It's just different rules governing different areas of the world where you are. Okay, so we don't have a blanket way of practice in the whole world. It's different depending on where you are.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kowa. And this rings bells in my mind. I once traveled with a colleague into Tanzania, at the Dar es Salaam airport, I had a yellow fever card my colleague didn't have. And that is like maybe 3-4 years ago. That colleague was given the yellow fever jab there and then. So really, some of these restrictions are not new, and sometimes we feel as though they are being forced upon us. The choice he had was to return to Zambia, but that was going to be at a great cost and loss. Thank you for that answer. My sister?
Thank you so much. I've got 2 questions. The first question, well, I'd like to say thank you for the answers you're giving us. Indeed, we are growing, and we're going to tell people out there for these good answers you're giving us. My question is, can the body contain or carry as many vaccines as possible? ETC, BCG, polio, cholera vaccine, it was given to our children, COVID-19, can it keep on carrying vaccines? Are there any effects which can come on the body upon taking so many vaccines? There will come another disease, we will get another vaccine. Another disease, as long as we give, as long as we live, we'll carry another. We've been carrying vaccines since we were born. 1 week, they give BCG. Another one, as long as we live. Another thing will come, another disease, will be given another vaccine. Is the body ready to carry all these vaccines? Are there any effects, or is it well with us? That is the first question. The second question goes like this. Why has the crisis of COVID-19 taken so much negativity? Unlike diarrhea, BCG, we take them easily. Why has it taken so much negativity, especially to take the vaccine? One, now the doctors have to explain over and over again, and still people are saying no. Already on phones, on these medias, phones, we saw pictures of people, physical people, real. Phones are holding on the vaccine, it can't fall. It is holding as if there's a magnet. They get a bulb, they put here a bulb. We are saying with our physical eyes, it will light up. A lot of things. Really, are we safe? Well, what is happening? We really want to know these things from you guys, because you guys, you know these things very well. And really, it has scared people to come for. Even a Christian like me would say, oh, I would rather stick with God. He will protect me and defend me. I won't get a vaccine. So, those 2 questions.
Thank you, my sister. We can give her a clap, free. And lo and behold, I thought I'd heard it all. The first question, Dr. Chomba, and the second question, Dr. Vo and Dr. Koa can share. Over to you, panel.
Okay, I like the first question because, like I said, I have an interest in pediatrics, and as a student, I'm doing my master's degree, so as a student, I'm expected to know all the Zambia expanded program on immunization for children. So just this afternoon, as I was preparing for this, I was on the WHO and CDC websites, and according to CDC, we have 24 vaccines. Some of them we don't even give here, but in other countries, they're actually given a lot more vaccines than we get. So, like we said, like I alluded to earlier, the vaccine, that's why we don't get a live, potent virus or bacteria or organism. Because what that thing would do is it will cause disease. It's as good as catching a disease and being sick because of that introduction into the body. So what we do to have a vaccine, or what scientists do, they're going to break it down to weaken it completely, or they're going to get a particle, or they're going to do some engineering outside of the body. They get this virus that's not harmful, then they get the COVID vaccine, put it together, then introduce it into your body, because then that's not like a COVID virus itself. So what a vaccine does, it stimulates the cells of your body that fight against that particular virus or bacteria. So what it means when you got your BCG is that some of your immune cells up to now, we call them memory T cells. They will remember, they recognize. If TB gets into the body, they'll be activated and they'll be able to clear it. When we talk about tetanus, when we talk about diphtheria, we talk about hepatitis, we talk about rotavirus, there's so many of them. It's not the organism that remains in the body, but it is your own cells that are activated and become specialized against it. So imagine your whole body has soldiers that are just marked, I am here to kill rotavirus, for example. It's your own cell. So no, you don't have a load of all these viruses in your body. Instead, you have soldier cells that they are more specific. They are like lethal. I think in Zambia we have people called the C5. Are we not scared of them? We know if C5 comes, they have the right to kill. It's kind of like that. So your own cells become specialized, waiting for that particular virus to attack, and then they already have a plan how they'll play it out and clear it, and that's how it works for you. So it's not the organism or the virus that remains in your body, but it is your own cells that are now specialized to kill and clear that particular organism. I hope I made it clear.
Yeah, just to top up on what you said, her question was all these vaccines. So the point she's making is that the vaccine doesn't remain in your system. The vaccine induces the immune response, and that's what remains. Okay, the vaccine will eventually go out of the system. I'll give a part response to the second question and allow my colleague also to come in. So. Oh, yes. Okay. So, one thing that you should know is that people who are against vaccines have been there for a long time, okay? So there's this big movement of people who are anti-vaccine. No matter what, they just do not want people to be exposed to vaccine, okay? So because of that movement, I think that's where most of the negativity comes from. But then, of course, people would be concerned because, number one, for coronavirus, remember, it's global, happening at the same time. And number two, we're used mostly, like Dr. Chomba mentioned, for vaccines to be given to our infants and, children to build up their immunity as they're growing in the world. Now here, we're getting vaccines and giving to adults, most of who are healthy. And human resource management, those who are managing people, that's a very, very, very tall order. It's a very difficult thing to do, to manage people. So number one, you are a healthy adult, and we say we have this, which is going to help you to navigate the COVID pandemic much better. Of course, there are all those questions which come up. And as we were making responses, this vaccine has been tested. It has gone through all the rigorous tests, which the vaccines which are currently in use, the ones which you are not afraid of, the same process they went through, this vaccine also went through. The same quality, the effectiveness has been certified. The difference is nowadays, like Dr. Chomba mentioned, we have advanced in technology. So we're able to, we're not reinventing the wheel. Okay, there's lots of research which has been done in the past which we're riding on, and things can be done even quicker. So, of course, the questions come because it came too fast. It's being produced by the West. They want to wipe out Africans, that kind of thing. So all those, I would attribute them to groups which are anti-vaccine and anti-West, and trying to, get you to shun this thing which is supposed to be a good thing at the end of the day?
Thank you very much. Dr. Woa, I'll ask you to answer the next question. I think Dr. Koa has done justice to that one. Our brother, Lieutenant, you can ask your question, and this will be the last question for this session as we wrap up.
Thank you so much, Doc, for allowing me to ask 2 questions. But before I do that, I just want to actually say thank you to the medical doctors, the medical personnel that have been the forefront of this COVID-19. Actually, my family was hit. I personally suffered the first and third wave. Then our second born also suffered. Then our second born suffered. Then our third born was almost going. Him suffered the second wave, and it was terrible. But thank God for the medical doctors that were handy, and they were able to help him to come out of that oxygen. I believe and trust that it's easier for humanity to adopt something that they see has more benefits than the costs. If only we can, as medical personnel, demystify the negativity surrounding the COVID-19. We've seen it taking lives in the Western world, even here. So if people can see the benefits, especially clearing the doubts that are in the minds of the population, it will be very easy to vaccinate or to achieve the herd immunity. Actually, before Dr. Reverend Chisolo asked that question, that's a question I wanted to bring on the natural immunity side. Because of that fact that I went through twice, I was even telling my wife, I think I've got a better immunity because it's natural, more natural than, it's natural and better than the induced or man-induced until it was cleared. But then I also wanted to find out just a follow-up question on the natural immunity issue. We are more comfortable with the man-induced immunity because we are saying this one may not wane the effectiveness, and we don't know how long the natural one will last in the body. Has there been any study that has been done on how long the natural immunity lasts? Because I believe it's better, the natural one. And secondly, has there been any study that has been done on the man-induced vaccination, especially after you have taken the second dose? Because then if we are able to explain these two, it will be very easy for people to adopt the man-induced, and then we close the chapter of vaccinations. If I may get a response in that direction. Now, the second question is on the case of Israel. Israel actually was the first to get a majority of its population to be vaccinated. But we are seeing the surge in COVID cases going up and up. Is there any explanation that our able doctors can highlight so that out of this interaction, we go with an informed decision and we get vaccinated? Because we are seeing Israel suffering so much despite the majority of its citizens being vaccinated. I thank you.
Okay, Dr. Chomba, Dr. Woa, you can take up those questions, and thank you, our brother. Very good questions indeed. Over to you, Dr. Woa.
I'll take the first one about how long the effectiveness of these vaccines are and how long the natural immunity lasts. So for the vaccine, just to start with, the coronavirus is a novel virus, meaning it's new, and more studies have been put in to understand, the dynamics of this virus. So the question as to how long the effectiveness of this vaccine lasts, it's not well documented. It's not well documented, meaning it's still under study. We are trying to understand for how long. Okay? Though some studies have suggested to say, like AstraZeneca might last for a year, but not well established. So, meaning to say, no conclusive evidence has been put across to establish as to how long the immunity, will be conferred in terms of COVID-19 vaccination. Then for the natural immunity, if you've seen the campaign mostly that targeted the under 5 children. Why? Because a children's immune system is in a way weak, and we try to boost it by introducing some antigen in the form of the vaccine, so that you boost the immune system of children to fight different diseases. So, meaning to say, by the age of 5 years or under 5 years, the immune system is expected to be weak, and we try to protect these children who are vulnerable from a severe form of disease that they may come across. I'll allow Dr. Chomba and Dr. Kowa to make some addition.
Okay, so as to the second question, I would say that that's a tough question because remember that this is science, and we always practice evidence-based medicine. So I believe that there's more research that needs to go into different particular populations and how they would have fared with the vaccine. I'll give an example of some of the vaccines that we give in children. Different populations may respond differently to vaccines. So this is just a postulation. I'm yet to study more on Israel and the scenario and what's going on, but I would preempt myself. It would be too early for me to comment as to why.
The other thing is Israel has done very well. Okay? They've at least 70+% vaccination to achieving herd immunity. And in addition, that's one state which is also doing booster vaccinations as well. But then remember, like Dr. Chomba mentioned, vaccines help you to prevent a severe form of the disease, and not that you cannot get the disease. Okay? Just to get that clearly, it doesn't mean once vaccinated with certain conditions, it doesn't mean you will not get the condition again. Okay? There are some conditions where if you've been exposed, the body then gives lifelong immunity against such a condition. So this one, we know that you can get breakthrough infections. They have been documented. And with the breakthroughs, the course is milder. There are some with pre-existing conditions where the course can be more severe. But with a healthy individual, you don't have any other condition. With the vaccination, your chances are much, much higher of, even if you do get a breakthrough infection, it will be a milder course. So, like Rachel was saying, of course, the dynamics need to be studied. Could it be a pandemic of the unvaccinated, the ones who were left out? You know, could it be people with pre-existing conditions who are now making up the surge? So, yeah, it's a good question and something that needs to be studied further.
Thank you. Thank you very much, panel. Can we give them a huge clap? You've done an exemplary job, and I know for a fact my audience is still beaming with a lot of questions, but we've run out of time. And basically, to wrap this session up, I'll just summarize a few points. First and foremost, we have heard that vaccines work. Indeed, some people may have breakthrough infection, but it will not be as severe as what it would have been had you not taken the vaccine. Secondly, based on the research that I've been privy to, natural immunity against COVID-19 is being pitted at around 3 months. Immunity that is acquired through vaccination will take you to over 1 year. So really, if you compare 3 months and 1 year, I would like to go with the over 1 year. There will be booster shots in due course as well to ensure that we are fully and continuously protected. Thirdly, the carrying capacity of the human body. Like you, Dr. Chomba, sometimes I sit and marvel at the system or systems God has put together in our body. We know very well that when it is hot, we sweat. That is a system in itself. When we suffer disease, we develop immunity. Even as we are seated, quietly and comfortably, the heart is busy bumping, circulating the blood. The lungs are breathing. These systems all coming together. And indeed, we get to marvel at how much the human body is able to do. There was a question of, there's so much emphasis about vaccines. Does it mean that from this time onwards we'll only be so dependent on vaccines that we cannot do without them? Ladies and gentlemen, for a fact, the number of diseases that we are seeing, they can be tackled faster with vaccination. There's a disease called smallpox. Does somebody remember it? The older ones will. If I was to ask this question in the youth service, a lot of people have no clue. Smallpox is no more. Why? Largely because of vaccination. So really, and how many vaccines can a body take up? So many. We cannot count. The goodness is that within a few days, the actual particle in the body is gotten rid of. What thought-provoking questions and very good responses. We can only thank you, panel, for having taken the time to come and share with us this very good knowledge. Thank you so much. Maybe we give them another clap as they exit the podium. Chair, may I hand over back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give the doc another big hand of applause.
Oh, okay, no problem.
I think this session was very, very educative, very, very thought-provoking, and very, very helpful. And I trust and believe that most of us have been helped. And all the myths concerning the vaccine has been clearly dealt with. All right, so I'll give a 5 minutes transition period. Maybe you want to stretch or do something. I'll give a 5 minutes transition as we also have this place cleared. But please don't go very far, just 5 minutes. You can stand, you can stretch, whichever you can. Greet somebody, you can go to the gents or something in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, and then we will be able to get into our next session, our last session, closing session. And I want to believe that it will be awesome, it will be powerful. Testing. Hello. I'll call the meeting to order. The 5 minutes is done. So can we stand together and pray? Let's be upstanding and we are going to pray. We are going to have the first part of praise and then worship. And as we are doing praise, I hope we have the ushers. We're going to collect our offering. In our first praise song, we are going to also collect our offerings. So feel free to give generously towards this conference. This conference has been a blessing, and the only way we can be a blessing to the conference is by giving. Let's pray together. Father, we thank you for this last session. We commend it into your hands. We pray that, Heavenly Father, you will speak and minister to us today. We pray that in this grand finale, encourage and inspire us. Give us the grace to start again in the mighty and gracious name of the Lord. Heavenly Father, we pray even for our giving, our offering as we offer it upon your altar. Pray that you bless it and sanctify it. We thank you and we give you praise. May this session be an uplifting session. Holy Spirit, we pray that you have your own way in our midst. We bless and give you praise in the blessed and gracious name of the Lord. We have prayed. Amen. Glory. Let me now invite Sister Deborah and team to lead us in the next session. God bless you and enjoy the service.